Welcome to day 2 of the week of Bumblebee figures. I'm honestly just reviewing these in the order they arrived, since I can't find a damn new thing in stores now outside of a billion Rhinoxes and Tigatrons. So I picked this guy up on Amazon. The whole wave is there for normal price, so if you want one of these, that's about the only place I know you can get them. While we're on the topic, that's why I haven't done the final What's the Best Kingdom video yet. I can't find Blaster, Slammer, or Hot Rod. When I get my hands on those, that's when that video happens. Question of the video: should I call this wrist action nail-checking wrists, Narcissa wrists, or sass hands, like jazz hands? Anyways, let's take a look at Bumblebee Rufus. That's Brawn to you if you aren't cool. So, this thing looks pretty awesome. What's this? A video where I don't talk up a storm about nothing at the beginning? Madness! But anyways, this thing looks pretty great. Much like the Ratchet, this is even more distinct from his show counterpart, while still being obviously him. Every time I make a video praising the Bumblebee designs, there are about a dozen people who insist that these designs are just the unaltered G1 designs. And I swear, if I hear that this time. Literally, the only thing they kept from the show is his general build, short and stocky, and the idea of his features, because there is not one piece of this that looks like it did in G1. In G1, he had his famous goiter hump, which was just a plank sitting behind his head. Here, the goiter hump has kind of devoured his head. Now that part's recessed within his hunchback, which acts like a collar that goes around his dome. Speaking of, it's way more of a dome than ever before. Brawn originally had this stupid Dutch boy haircut that made him look dumb as hell and gave him a fairly round head. Now, he's just flat out stolen the Juggernaut's helmet, and he's got nothing even approaching a human face in there. His shoulders have just become a pair of pauldrons, he's now wearing yellow shoes, which he never had before, and in general, he used to be completely made of squares, and now he's made of cylinders. So I don't want to hear how this is just the G1 design, therefore it's dumb this time, because it's not. It's nothing like it. It just evokes the design. And doing that is all I've ever asked of the movies. I don't need one-to-one screen adaptations. I only wanted two things. One, I didn't want my eyes to hurt like with Optimus Prime's stupid chin mouth he never covers up. Seriously, why couldn't they just put that where a mouth goes? Or, cover it up like it's always supposed to be. And two, I wanted to be able to recognize a character when I was introduced to them in the movie before someone said out loud what their name was. And this does that perfectly, while still looking new, unique, and alien. Pretty much all it takes is getting the colors right and having a head that reminds you of what character you are looking at. And once those parameters are met, you can see them in a horde of others and go, oh hey, they're supposed to be this person. Animated did crowd shots like that all the time, and you could always tell who was in there. And don't you dare try to tell me that Animated was G1 styled. I have seen that argument be made before. If Animated is G1, then literally everything but the movies is G1. What was supposed to be the point of this video again? Oh yeah, Rufus, not an argument about what qualifies as G1 or not. I feel like I've been at least a little bit on topic because I really don't know more what I can say about this little guy. He's very good, incredibly clean, basically no hollowness to be found. He's got this split down the backs of his legs that can kind of count as that, but they look so different to what we are used to with empty shins. It's so unlike what's typical, it kind of feels like an intentional design feature. This figure is teeny. Remember how I was very impressed with Ratchet's size? Yeah, this is a little baby man compared to him, only coming up to that figure's elbow. Somehow, I don't find that insulting. That's very likely due to the fact that this figure is remarkably devoid of problems. It does what it does it efficiently, and it's not grifting us. Rufus is supposed to be a small guy. He gets a small figure. I get it. Long as he doesn't have unnecessary parts forming and is actually like 1% painted, I'm good. And this is like 5% painted, so thumbs up. And this is why I always say I'm not much one for paint, because he's got a bare few accents, but the main breakup of his color that makes him visually interesting is just his plastics. That's not to say they didn't accent him well, or that they spared the brush, I'm just saying it's rarely vital to a figure looking great. His hump is largely clear plastic, and I know a lot of people are probably groaning right now. But hold your horses, because one, this is absolutely a robust little chunk. To break this, you'd need to have to do something truly catastrophic to this figure. And two, this is actually done the correct way, by mounting it in a piece of opaque plastic rather than just having the whole part be clear. Also, the build of this guy is leagues better than his wavemate Ratchet. I think I've heard that some people get slightly loose copies of this guy, but even at its loosest, this is sturdier than that old medic. And personally, mine is solid as a rock. Now, the head is odd, to say the least. Like I said, this is basically nothing like the G1 head outside of its general concept, like they took the hair he used to have and just encased his whole face in it. Mother's metal polish, for bounce, volume, and hold. It's amazing just how much this is Juggernaut's helmet. How did they not get sued? There is nothing human about his face within that helmet, but there's also nothing alien about it. There's kind of just nothing about it. He's got blue little eyes that stand out well despite being so recessed, and then like the bridge of a nose, and then nothing. Just kind of a mess of spaghetti where his face should be. Not gonna lie, I would have liked to have seen something that looks a little more like a face with this design, but it is pretty hard to see with it so sunken into the helmet, so you don't really notice it from most angles. Now, after all that, the look of this thing is, as I said at the start, great. It's a completely new but instantly recognizable version of the character. Can we please just agree that this is not a G1 take? The accessories this guy comes with are a smidge better than his two-wave compadres. Once again, getting the generic blaster in gray this time with a very slight change to the sculpting. Pretty much just altering the muzzle of the gun, removing the peg, and adding on 2 ports. The ports kinda suck. They're meant to peg the gun onto his back, but these are tiny and they have no grip. Oddly enough, they are the size of siege pegs, so you can stick them onto some interesting places on other figures. And he comes with this backdrop, which is the same one that comes with the Ratchet, which is the same one that comes with the Shockwave and Ravage, just bigger. But he also comes with this drill bit. He can use it as a stupid melee weapon, or you can plug it into the barrel of his gun and make it into some kind of death laser. It's too bad that the prongs aren't sized for blast effects. This too can peg on his back or on top of the gun for the worst scope ever. So, his stuff is just barely better than the Ratchet and Wheeljack because he comes with literally one more thing. So far, everything is great. I'm loving this figure. Posability kinda sucks though. It's not necessarily done all that bad, but it is all done very weird. Head only swivels, and it only barely swivels. He's got like 30 degrees of turning, and that helmet has gotta be keeping his cone of vision narrow. Shoulders pull a tolerable amount less than a 90. If you unpeg the back, you get some backwards butterfly. Normally, I wouldn't talk about arm rotations because every figure has them, so I shouldn't bother you with them if they aren't missing. But this time they aren't missing, and I still have to bring them up. You see, they are mounted as a separate piece at the top of his shoulder, inside of his pauldrons, and that means that you have very limited rotation there. It looks great, but it feels incredibly restricted. Elbows that go very close to maximum. Wrist swiv. Hips are unimpeded forward and back, but out to the side they only pull like a 45. Normally I wouldn't bring up hip rotation, but this is also weird being located only just above the knee, which is a very unnatural place for it to be. It's not the worst thing, but it does feel bad. Knees that give you slightly more than 90, and a double joint that on any other figure would give you a fake maximum knee, but here they are mounted so low that in no way does it look like anything. And lastly, feet with a huge toe down and serious pivots. So yeah, this guy has like one specialty joint that's not really doing all that much, and then everything else he has is kind of way below standard, except for the elbows, which are his best feature. How am I still not mad at this thing? The best bit about him is that he is light enough, stable enough, and built strong enough that he can do this with no issue. And I don't think there's another figure that can do that, period. Transformation is kind of bad too, and I'm still not mad at it. It's not terrible, but it's kind of simple to the point where it becomes confusing. I never used directions even on the most complex figures, and I had to look at them on this guy because I just didn't think I was doing it right because it couldn't be that basic. It just blows me away that nothing fills in his roof. But it's not a lame transformation just because it's so simple. It's lame because getting these pegs where they belong is a pain. You need more clearance to flex them in than is possible, and even when you get them in, they don't want to stay in somehow. There had to have been a better way of doing this. And here we have his, I don't know, rickshaw mode? This looks like something from a 60s sci-fi movie where they wanted to make a space vehicle, so they just encased a bicycle in a bubble. And I'm not knocking that. I'm here for that. He's no longer an off-road vehicle of any kind. Honestly, with his colors, he kind of comes across like a piece of small construction equipment, especially if you plug the drill in the front. I feel like there should be a gear system in there that causes the drill to spin, but I'm okay without it. I honestly like this. Some people complain that it's just a thing that we only ever saw on the show once, but this is fun and it makes him feel like something useful. No, not like a drill tank, the most stupid and useless type of tank, just like a trench digger or something. Just a small utility vehicle you'd find on a job site. This figure is okay. I've seen people singing the praises of this thing, but I think it's really just due to him having the best QC out of his little group. Cause everything he's doing objectively worse than the other two, outside of accessories, which, you know, who cares? But he's smaller, he's less painted, he poses a lot worse, transforms at best mediocrely. Alt mode is okay, but it's not special in that or anything. But at the same time, I find myself pretty okay with this little dude. I'm not offended by his price point, which I very easily could be. Really, I think my attitude towards him just comes down to there's nothing he crashes and burns at, and he looks cool, and that's taking him pretty far, but not all the way. But there is just no denying that there is something about him that lets him punch above his objective weight class. That's a very Brawn thing to do now that I'm thinking about it. On a point-by-point scale, I don't know that you need to rush out and get this, but I think that if you do, you will look at it and go, yeah. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.